Customers go through a journey that has stages and, just as importantly, has multiple targets at each of these stages. For ease of design and time, we've just thought about two targets inside a potential customer for each of the four stages, plus maybe a third target that could be, let's say, your pathway or channel. There may be more influencers, and it's probably true that the relative power of each could shift between these stages. Starting with two at the customer level and adding one in for the channel gives you a good perspective about how that journey looks and what the components are. In the vast majority of B2B type purchases, there are at least two and maybe three influencers in each of the journey. And what we see, though, is that no one target ever has more than about 20% of the purchasing power at each stage. So you must use multiple influencers, especially in that B2B model. What we show as front, middle and back, and advocacy could as easily be described as the discovery, consideration, and purchase stage, again followed by advocacy, or it could be an awareness, consideration, and purchase stage model followed by advocacy. As I've said, note at the bottom that third target is the channel. It's really important to note how the channel or pathways are as key at the front of the journey as they are typically at the end of the purchase. In most B2B categories, direct channel contact for information is as important as access to marketing information customers get at the start of the purchase process. The key now is to plot the customer or influencer's journey as a collective from the start of the journey to the end, applying the 8 journey management rules you've seen before. We really have to think not about our journey, but about the customer's individual and thus collective journeys through this purchase process. Customers think about their information needs that they need as sort of a content requirement. This is like a set of different mixes of content pies. Sometimes the content pies will be similar between targets, and sometimes elements will be different or mixed. The size of the lines inside each circle show how important that type of content is at that stage for that particular target, really a sort of weighting of customer needs. See how that content can go across various stages or disappear and actually come back again later. So pick one of these content areas and just sort of plot it from left to right, how it comes in or goes away and then maybe comes back again later. The key is to build journeys that glue these content pieces together in the most coherent and enjoyable way to hold the attention of the various influencers. It's really, really important to draw these pies as a way of putting yourself in the customer's shoes, not just for one stage, but through the whole journey at each stage. This is as true of the content with the channel and pathways and what they need to get through the journey as it is for the customers or influencers. Now we can take these pies and show them as sort of content hotspots through the journey. Note that the shared ones are straddled between the targets, and the specific content they each use, sort of unique, is much more aligned to the horizontal flow of the customer or influencer through their own specific journey. Once this is plotted, we can then think about our messages and how we connect those messages to specific content. The messages are in speech marks under each content area. It's important to think of the content as being like water in the bottle. This is the stuff they really want. And the messaging is like the label on the bottle, the sort of packaging. Now the key is connecting and sequencing this through each target's journey, including elements of each of them, even to and through the channel or pathways. Once you sort of load the bottles with content, basically the vehicles, these carry the content and have the label for the messaging, we can then think about sequencing and connecting the journeys together. So you've got the content, the messaging, the wrapping, and the water inside that vehicle, which is the bottle. And you'll also note that actually some bottles have sort of multiple content types inside them. Think hard about connecting assets. Give people multiple choices and do not assume journeys and choices are linear. You can see here how there are various choices, not always progressing from left to right, but sometimes top to bottom and bottom to top of a phase in the journey. Choice is absolutely key, but make them multiple options and not just one. Measurement is critical, not perfect or absolute, and clearly not everywhere in the customer's journey. There are too many routes, choices, and options for that. That, though, does not mean some forms of interconnected measures are not possible. One thing we recommend is small and connected and not grand one-off metrics. To directly link an activity like a download of content to sales, especially in complex multi-target and multi-stage sales, it is a fallacy. We should see metrics as being connected from one stage to another and not always look for perfection. Metrics, marked in blue triangles here, could be the ones we know, for example downloads, ones we have some data around. We call these sort of think metrics, for example likely value of the content for pass on or channel feedback on usage, and the metrics we believe or feel from experience matter. For example, these might be sales feedback on if the customers mention the content in a conversation. Remember, metrics have to be connected. They do not have to be perfect. They can be a blend of know-type metrics, think-type metrics, and believe metrics. Decisions will never be perfect, but they get far closer to value if they truly track the course of the customer's journey. Think about how you move customers or influencers through to the next step in the journey. Note this is not a funnel, but a set of connected nets and choices. Customers do not think in a linear manner, nor do they search for content in that way. Sequencing and connecting is an art form based on experiences and learnings, and actually can be very unique to you and your brand as an equity for your marketing. Next, you have to think about metrics, the little sort of blue triangles. Here we've shown just a few, and please not be afraid to be slightly imperfect in these measures, because we cannot measure everything perfectly.